Adam Eisenberg, you want to listen to audio when Rob leaves?
Sure. We're speeding.
Adam, could you tell us identify yourself?
Okay, my name is Adam Gertsacov, and I am Professor A.G. Gertsacov, the flea trainer extraordinaire and psychoentomologist of the ACME Miniature Circus, the most minuscule show on earth.
Okay.
Look at me.
My name is Adam Gertsacov, and I play Professor A.G. Gertsacov of the ACME Miniature Flea Circus.
And tell us exactly what is the circus?
Well, basically, it's a Victorian-style flea circus, genuine, actual fleas, in which I train the insects to perform spectacular circus stunts, as seen before and on top of the crowned heads of Europe.
So these are all, you got real fleas?
Well, naturally, it wouldn't be much of a flea circus without them. Be kind of the anti-flea circus.
And what led you to doing this?
Well, it's a long and complicated tale, but basically, I'm a clown, and I was working in a circus, the Pan Twilight Circus in Providence, Rhode Island, and I did an animal trainer clown act, and I did a flea circus as part of that. It was an imaginary flea circus. I had 17-piece band, and I had a box that moved all the way around, and it was kind of a very interesting show, and it got a lot of applause. And I showed it to Avner the Eccentric, Avner Eisenberg. And Avner watched the show, and he said, you know what? Get rid of all the clown stuff. Focus on the fleas. Get yourself some fleas. You're so big, they're so little. You'll love the fleas. That's your show. And so that was kind of the impetus to start my flea circus. At the same time, I met a guy who ran a flea circus from Providence years and years ago, an older guy. And he wasn't very helpful, but he kind of assured me that it could be done. And I talked to a friend of mine who's a toy designer at Rhode Island School of Design named Dennis Helinsky. And Dennis, I talked to him, I was working with him on a different show, and I said to him, Dennis, I'm thinking about a flea circus. And he said, so have I been. So I got a grant from the State Council on the Arts, and from the Rhode Island State Council on the Arts. And with that grant money, I hired Dennis and a friend of his, Jamie Murphy, to do the props and set for the show. Then I purchased some fleas from an entomological supply company. I spent about 2 years trying to figure out how to get the fleas to do tricks. And then I started, that was in '94, started touring the show really in '96 and have been doing the show ever since.
Pause a second. Go ahead, Keith. Go ahead, Jeff.
So what you have here is a real, now explain the history and significance of why it's so important to be on 42nd Street.
Well, 42nd Street's a real important place in flea circus lore. Perhaps the most famous flea circus of all time was Professor Heckler's flea circus. Professor Heckler and his father did their flea circus for over 60 or 70 years, and Professor Leroy Heckler performed it in Times Square at Hubert Stein Museum for over 35 years. In 1957, Professor Heckler left Times Square because he said that the nude shows were giving his fleas a bad name. So now, here it is, 2002, they cleaned up Times Square, and I thought it was the right idea to bring the fleas back.
So Heckler was like was he a legendary figure?
He's definitely one of the most well-known. Professor Heckler is definitely one of the most well-known flea circus guys. When I do my show, all over the world, really, I have people come up to me and say, you know, I saw a flea circus in Times Square 50 years ago. And, you know, they're talking about Professor Heckler. There were flea circuses here before that in New York. The earliest flea circus that I know about was Professor Bertolotto's flea circus, which was in Covent Garden. But then later, in the 1829, Professor Bertolotto. But in 1850s, Bertolotto was here in New York being presented by P.T. Barnum at his Great American Museum down on Broadway and Catherine, downtown.
And this is just, so the fleas are, do you let them bite you? Or do you...
Actually, no. The way that I've been able to, when I first bought them, that was one of my big fears, is that I would have them bite me and, you know, I'd get a plague or something. But now they only need to be fed every 15 days, and I can prick my finger and put the blood into a little petri dish, and they're able to feed in that way. And, you know, as I said, they only need to be fed every 15 days or so.
Adam, do you have a...
Yeah, can you
You're going to look at me and...
Answer Jeff.
Oh, didn't I do that? Was
Yeah,
it?
no, answer Jeff. I'm going to ask you a
He's going to
question.
ask you a question.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah. Gotta get through?
Come up there.
Yeah, go ahead and ask.
Watch out.
Can you give me a little rundown of what Heckler's Act was? What would happen?
Well, Professor Heckler's act differs from my show in a number of different ways. Professor Heckler performed maybe 50 shows a day. Each show was approximately 10 minutes long. And he had about, I think, 7 or 8 different acts. He had a chariot race, like I have a chariot race in my show. He also had fleas that do sword fighting. He had a flea that, the Hercules, the strongest flea in the world, and it would kick a little soccer ball. My show is 30 minutes long or 35 minutes long, and it's really, the fleas do 3 acts. One of the reasons why is because my show's a humane show. They used to go through the fleas at quite an enormous rate at Heckler's show. You know, they would take glue and glue the sword to the little flea to do the sword fighting. I don't want to do that. I only use 2 fleas in my show to do the entire show. And my fleas do 3 tricks. So that's kind of a coup, I guess, in flea circus training or psychoentomology.
And did you see any shows when you were a kid? Did you come to Times Square and see
I never saw the flea circus in Times Square. The other place where people often hear about the flea circus is there's I think it's a Tex Avery cartoon about the flea circus, and of course I'd seen that thing. But I came to the flea circus. I'm a professional actor and clown and director. I went to directing school. I used to work at the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis and at Trinity Rep, and kind of came into the circus backwards. I wasn't a circus guy. I kind of went to Ringling Clown College, and while I was there, I realized that all of my acting work was about being a clown. And then I was a clown in a circus, and then I found the sideshow. So it's a little bit different, I think, than some of the other people who maybe either were brought into it or, you know, their family lived in the circus and arena or the sideshow. You know, for me, it was really a choice, and it was a theatrical choice. You know, my show is really a little miniature theater play that happens to include a magnificent spectacle of trained fleas. You know, in my show, the fleas pull chariots, as I said, but they pull them, it takes them 1.5 minutes to go about 10 inches. It's not like it's exciting visual theater. What's exciting is the audience goes crazy cheering for the fleas. And the journey of the 10 inches, by the way, that 10-inch journey is exactly the same amount of time. It takes them 1.5 minutes. That's the exact same amount of time that the Kentucky Derby takes to run. But that journey is not the exciting journey. The exciting journey is the journey of the audience, when they catch themselves cheering for insects that they can't really see. And you know what? If they could see them, they'd probably be trying to kill them. Yet I get them to love the fleas. And that's really, I would say, the magic of my show and why people are so excited about it. They can see something happen. They catch themselves being compassionate. And they get caught in the magic of being in the room. I get a lot of, I've had a lot of publicity. I was in the Los Angeles Times, and I got a call from The Tonight Show about being on the show. And they said, well, send us your video. And I sent them my video, and you know, they sent it back a week later saying, we'd love to have you on the show, but the fleas, they're just a little too small. And you know, I'm not doing a cockroach circus. It's a flea circus. You know, they're as small as they are. So sadly, not The Tonight Show for me.
Briefly, how long have flea circus has been around?
The first flea circus that I know about started in 1829. Professor Bertolato performed it in Covent Garden. One of the things that he did in Covent Garden is he had 435 fleas, and he performed the recreation of Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo. And obviously in England at that time, that was quite a great success. It was the rage of England. From then, by the 1900s, flea circuses were quite common. I've read things that said that flea circuses were on every block, but they're kind of hard to find out about because they weren't documented very well. And as a result, there was a Professor Carson in England that did a show, and Professor Heckler, who did his show. The first time that I saw Professor Heckler's name is he was at the 1903 Chicago World's Fair. And since then, you know, you can buy memorabilia on the internet now, you know, from 1903 all the way up to 1957 when his son, Leroy Heckler, left Times Square. As a matter of fact, the Hecklers, the grandchildren, have contacted me and they're planning on coming to the show, and I'm looking forward to talking to them about their grandfather.
Any estimate of how many people might have seen the Heckler show?
It's hard to say. He performed for few people at a
Can
time.
you repeat my question?
Okay, it's hard to say how many people actually saw Heckler's show. I can tell you quite a lot because he was here for a long time. He did 50 shows a day from morning till midnight. And a lot of people, when they talk about Times Square, the old Times Square, that's what they talk about, is the flea circus. I've had several people, I performed at people's weddings and anniversaries where 50 years ago, a guy was a sailor in the 1940s. He came off a ship, he got married, and for their honeymoon, they went to the flea circus. And so they hired me to come to their wedding or their anniversary party to do a flea circus for them. And my show's kind of different. I've had some people come in and say that they thought that my show was a little funnier and more educational than Heckler's. But also I have 35 minutes where he had 10 minutes. I do, maximum of 5 shows a day, whereas he did 50. It's kind of a different venue for a different time.
Can you talk about, this is the last question, I guess. Would you say this is a dying art?
It's hard to say whether or not the flea circus is a dying art. When I started my show, there was another woman who started her show at exactly the same time, Maria Fernanda Cardoso. And the difference between our two shows is that she's a Yale-trained sculptor, and I'm a Ringling-trained clown. So her show is really based on all of the different sculptures that she built for the fleas to do their tricks. Whereas my show is really based on the experience of the audience. I really want the audience to come in. I sell stuff, because I sell stuff at the beginning, 10-cent programs, because really, if you haven't bought the program, if you haven't bought a postcard, if you haven't been bamboozled by the flea circus guy, you really haven't been to the show.
Can you say that that last part one more time?
Yep.
Quiet, please.
Hold on a second.
Quiet!
Quiet, please. Thank you. I,
The bamboozled part.
all right. I would say that, at the beginning of my show, I sell things. I sell 10-cent programs and Save the Fleas buttons because I want people to get the flavor of the sideshow. Really, if you haven't bought the 10-cent program, if you haven't bought the postcard or the Save the Fleas button from the flea circus guy, you haven't been bamboozled by the flea circus guy, you really haven't seen the show. That's all part of the atmosphere, part of the nostalgic return of the sideshow. And that's one of the things that people love. I do this flea market before the flea circus, and people love that show. I could make that as long as the rest of the show, because people love that feeling of being gently hustled.
Hey, can you tell me one last thing? Can you just give me a brief talk about just the romanticism of sideshows in general, or the nostalgia of that?
And how it relates to you, and how
Right.
important it is to be here on Times Square.
For me, it's really important to be here on Times Square because this is where most people have their first interaction with the flea circus. All the time, I get older people coming in saying, I saw this show 50 years ago, and nobody's believed me that there was a flea circus here, and now I can send them over here. So I'm here all the way through December 31st, and I really want to make a commitment to give people the opportunity to see the flea circus again, to relive this magical time of a time where, on the Discovery Channel or something, you can see fleas and insects and parasites and paramecium to your heart's content now. You can dial them up on the internet. But back in the day, you couldn't. You had to go to a show. You had to see the flea circus. And being in the room with the guy, having him show you these amazing insects. One thing about fleas, the microscope was invented to study fleas. And Anton von Leeuwenhoek, who invented the microscope, used to call it the flea glass. And he invented it to study the reproductive life cycle of fleas. And one of the things he said that God's greatest creations are in his smallest of creatures. Of course, he said that in Dutch.
Okay. I think we're good. Can you just say the sentence, you can now watch it on TV. Maybe we'll cut that out of Discovery. What's that? We're fine. You were great.
Thanks a lot, Al.
Yep.
Can you do that with your head? Yeah, there you go. That's good.
You want him to do stay tuned for more shock in the maze?
Yeah,
on
yeah,
Travel Channel?
yeah. Can you do that? Right.
Sure.
Tight,
And then,
tight,
and then,
tight. Get it tight.
And then do a little eye raise.
yeah.
Yeah, tighter. Tighter. Yeah, good.
Right into the camera.
Right
Yep.
at the camera.
Stay tuned for more Shocked and Amazed TV.
Not TV, on the Travel Channel.
Oh, stay tuned for more Shocked and Amazed on the Travel Channel.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Stay tuned for more Shocked and Amazed on the Travel Channel.
Here we go. Without further ado, the ACME Clown Company and the Bindlestiff Family Circus are proud to present, for your viewing entertainment only, the most minuscule show on earth, the ACME Miniature Circus, starring Midge and Madge, performing fleas! Madge! Ladies and gentlemen, for their first number, Midge and Madge will run a chariot race. Ladies and gentlemen, please make sure to cheer for your flea, and may the best flea win. Racers, on your marks. Racers, get set. Racers, go! Let's hear it for Midge! And ladies and gentlemen, Midge is starting up, but Madge is in the lead. And it looks like Madge is trying to cut off Midge. Amazing! That foul play right here, folks. Madge is cutting off Midge. But wait a minute, what's this? It looks like Midge is making her move. Let's hear it for Midge! Let's hear it for Midge! And ladies and gentlemen, we've approached the midway point of the race, the straightaway. And Midge is in the lead, Madge is in the lead, but just coming up closer behind. And it's going to be a very, very tight race, folks. Last chance, folks, last chance. Let's hear it for the fleas. Let's hear it for the fleas. Ladies and gentlemen, a very, very close race. It's going to be very close. But, oh, and Midge is now in the lead. And ladies and gentlemen, last moment, last moment, last moment. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner! And a microscopic photo finish. Midge has won the race! Not only do we have culture, but we also have drama. I will now recite the masterwork of the Flea of Avon, William Fleespear. His immortal masterpiece, Fleelit, Prince of Denmark. Finally, folks, the shortest poem in the English language, entitled Fleas. Adam had 'em. And now, folks, I'm just going to bring Midge into her trailer so that she may prepare. And now, folks, Madge is going to perform a dance on the tight wire for us all. I'm just going to bring Madge to the tight wire. I'm afraid I have some shocking news for you. It seems that Madge has escaped. I hope no one's wearing a flea collar today. Don't worry, I know how to find her. I just need to think like a flea. Now, where could she have gone?
I understand.
Excuse me. Pardon me, sir. I must inspect your hair.
Sure,
No,
not
don't move,
take it
don't
in.
move, don't move. You have a very expensive flea in your hair, but don't worry, I will get it. Oh dear. I've got my eye. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Madge. Now put Madge to the tight wire. Very good. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Madge will dance across the wire majestic while balancing this miniature chair and pole. First, I must balance the chair and pole on Madge, a feat requiring a keen hand and a steady eye. I mean, a keen eye and a steady hand. Yes. One moment, please.
As she dances across the wild majestic, she will dance to the strains of the Waltz Bleu. Maestro, s'il vous plaît. Other music, sir. The spotlight. She's up on 3 feet. 4 feet. 5 feet. What's this? She's blindfolded herself. A 360-degree twist while maintaining the chair. And now, she walks backwards. And now, the ballet portion of the number. Pied à terre, rond de jambe, a triple jeté. And she shook off the buffalo. I haven't seen that before. Some kind of bossing maneuver. And she finishes her routine with an exciting triple split. Let's have a warm round of applause. Very good. Very, very good. That's right. Very good. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to put Madge into her trailer so she may prepare for her next number. Folks, while the fleas are preparing for their next number, I have a very special decorated trailer. But first, folks, I must load the fleas into the cannon of doom. Which flea will be the... Oh, very good, Madge, you stayed. Very, very good. Very good, Madge. That's the positive reinforcement I was speaking of earlier. There you go. Into the cannon. Okay, folks. And now, very important part of this trick, folks, I will now light the flaming hoop of death. If you should happen to have a flaming hoop of death in your own home, I suggest you do not light it without the supervision of a trained professional, such as myself. A trained professional, such as myself. Good things come to those who wait. A trained professional, such as myself.
Oh, wow.
No one is more surprised than me. A very important part of this next trick, folks, is to set the ballistics of the cannon. That which we could have a very unfortunate incident. It's also very important at this point to make sure that the door is in fact open. As I find the explosive powder. A moment, please. I will hopefully load the cannon with explosive powder. Aha! Sometimes we keep the explosive powder in the bathroom. That's why. For obvious reasons. Exactly. Ears or a sensitive heart. I suggest you close them now. Before we continue, let us 5, 4, flee, 2, 1. Let me see, lights, lights! Ladies and gentlemen, Midge and Madge have made another successful trip through the flaming hoop of death! Woo! Folks, that... Can you give me a couple rack focuses, too? An Iraq focus? What?
Bad one.
Did you get,
Go ahead and say it.
Did you get the cherry see close up?
Yep. Oh, the.
It's kind of actually very standard. kind of big as what see it on the hand. I'll put it right through here.
You want to take the watch off?
Yeah, good idea. This is the nicest of the chariots. It's midges.
Or something?
He did have, one of the other things that he did is he had a little, fleas that danced.
You put that down right below where it is, just right on the stage. Okay, we're gonna do that one more time. You just put it in your hand and drop it back down.
Okay. Just,
Okay. Damn, that was perfect. Hold on, don't move. And you know your tight wire thing?
yeah.
Go ahead.
Are you getting the movement of it?
Yeah, with the movement. Can you activate it? Or
Yeah. You ready?
not yet?
Oh, you want it to move across?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we don't want to. We don't want to film.
actually, it's gonna have to move the other way.
Okay. Stand by. All right, go ahead.
No, the music's playing. I'm gonna have to stop it now.
It's fine stuff. That was excellent.
Yeah, also, if you're more than 3 feet away, and I'm talking more than anything.
Okay, that light can come off.
But, you know, it was a little tiny room, and he had a magnifying glass, like here, that you could.
That's pretty helpful.
You can take the audio stuff out.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Okay.
How long were you with them?
I never actually toured with the Ringling Show. I just went to their clown college. It was 1989. It was 4 months of college. When I went there, I also am a graduate. I studied with Dario Fo in 1996. How I like to say it is, in 1996, Dario won the Nobel Prize. 1996, I studied with Dario Fo. In 97, he won the Nobel Prize. I'm not saying there's a connection. I leave that for others.